The first time Claire Bennett saw Alexander Kane, he was not powerful enough to stand, but he was still dangerous enough to make the hallway feel smaller. It was 1:38 a.m. at Mercy Hospital, the hour when even the fluorescent lights seemed tired. Rain hammered against the narrow windows at the end of the service corridor, turning the glass black and silver. Somewhere far away, a monitor beeped steadily. Somewhere closer, a nurse laughed too softly behind the station, trying not to wake the patients. Claire had just finished a 12-hour shift. Her feet ached inside her white sneakers. Her hair was slipping from its loose ponytail. There was a coffee stain on the sleeve of her scrub top, and her phone had 3 missed calls from her landlord she did not have the strength to answer. All she wanted was to clock out, walk to the bus stop, and get home before the storm swallowed the city completely. Then she heard the crash. Not loud, not dramatic, just metal against tile, followed by a breath that sounded like someone trying very hard not to fall apart. Claire stopped beside the supply closet. The hospital had a way of making every sound feel important at night. She turned toward the emergency exit at the end of the service hall. The red sign above it flickered once, twice. A man was half kneeling beneath it, one hand braced against the wall, the other pressed to his side. He wore a white dress shirt soaked through by rain, the sleeves rolled to his forearms, the fabric clinging to a body built like something carved out of threat and discipline. His dark hair was wet. His jaw was clenched. Even injured, even pale under the cold light, he looked less like a victim and more like a man the world had failed to finish. Claire's first instinct was training. Call security. Call a doctor. Ask for his name. Check for identification. But before she could speak, his head lifted. His eyes found hers. Cold gray. Focused. Too steady for someone in pain. Don't let them find me, he said. Claire's hand froze halfway to her radio. Sir, you're hurt. I know. This is a hospital. That's why they'll look here first. The answer made no sense, and yet the fear in the hallway suddenly did. Not his fear. The air's. Claire heard footsteps then. 3 sets, maybe 4, coming from the main corridor beyond the double doors. Not rushing. Not lost. Searching. The man heard them too. His shoulders tightened, but instead of looking toward the sound, he looked at Claire, as if she had become the only door left in the world. 10 seconds, he said. That's all I need. Claire should have stepped back. She should have followed every rule printed in every manual she had ever signed. She was a night shift nurse with overdue bills and no one powerful waiting to protect her if this went wrong. Men like him brought storms with them. She could feel that before she knew his name. But then the double doors at the far end of the corridor shifted. A shadow crossed the frosted glass. Claire looked back at the man on the floor. He was trying to stand, and failing, but when the doors creaked open, he moved anyway, putting his body between her and whatever was coming. That was what made her decision for her. Not his eyes, not his voice, not the strange authority in the way he breathed through pain like it was an inconvenience. It was that small, impossible thing. He was the one being hunted, and still he stepped in front of her. Claire grabbed a clean lab coat from the supply cart and threw it over his shoulders. Can you walk? His gaze sharpened. Yes. That wasn't an honest answer. It's the only one I have. She swallowed, then slipped her arm under his, feeling the heat of him through the wet fabric. He was heavier than she expected, solid with muscle, but he forced himself upright without leaning too much. Pride, she thought. Or control. Maybe both. The footsteps grew closer. Claire pushed open the emergency exit. Rain rushed in like a living thing. Cold air slapped her face. The alley behind Mercy Hospital glistened under the security lights, empty except for overflowing bins, a parked ambulance, and the black mouth of the staff parking lot beyond. This way, she whispered. They moved into the storm together. Behind them, the service corridor door began to open. Claire did not look back. She pulled him through the rain, past the ambulance, past the loading dock, toward the shadowed edge of the lot, where a black car waited with its engine running. The man stopped beside the rear door. For a second, his mask slipped. Not enough to make him soft, just enough to make him human. He looked at her like he was memorizing her face under the rain and hospital light. What's your name? He asked. Claire shook her head. Go. His mouth tightened, almost like he hated the answer. Then the car door opened from inside. Before he got in, something small and black slipped from his cuff and hit the wet pavement. Claire saw it, but said nothing. The car vanished into the rain seconds later. Only then did she bend down and pick it up. A cufflink. Black metal. A silver symbol carved into its center. Behind her, the hospital door slammed open. Claire closed her fist around the cufflink before the hospital door slammed open behind her. Rain ran down her face, under her collar, into the neckline of her scrubs, but she did not move. For 1 second, all she could hear was the black car disappearing into the storm and her own heartbeat beating too hard for a woman who had done nothing except open a door. Then a man's voice cut through the rain. "Hey, you." Claire turned slowly. 3 men stood beneath the emergency exit light. They were not dressed like hospital security. No blue uniforms. No radios clipped to their shoulders. No tired expressions from too many overnight calls. They wore dark coats, polished shoes, and faces trained to reveal nothing. The one in front looked at her badge first. Not her face. Her badge. Claire Bennett. He read aloud, as if tasting the name. Her hand tightened around the cufflink in her pocket. "This is a restricted staff exit." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "Patients and visitors aren't allowed back here." The man smiled without warmth. "Good. Then you can tell us who just left." Claire looked past him toward the corridor. 2 nurses had stopped near the double doors, watching from a distance, uncertain whether this was their problem or someone else's. In hospitals, people learn not to interfere unless someone was bleeding in front of them. "I don't know what you're talking about," Claire said. The man stepped down 1 stair into the rain. Tall man. Dark hair. White shirt. Injured. Her stomach dropped, but her face did not change. Years of night shifts had taught her how to stay calm when families screamed, when patients crashed, when doctors barked orders like panic could be bullied into obedience. She used that same face now. "If someone was injured, you should check the emergency department." "We did." "Then speak to the charge nurse." His smile faded. "I'm speaking to you." The air between them changed. Claire felt it immediately. This was not a question anymore. It was pressure wrapped in politeness. She took 1 step back, keeping the open doorway within reach. "Sir, I'm going to ask you to leave this area before I call security." He laughed softly. "You think security is going to help you?" That was when Claire understood something she wished she had understood 10 minutes earlier. The man she helped was dangerous, yes. She had seen it in his eyes, in the way pain bowed around him instead of breaking him. But these men were different. They did not look dangerous because they were powerful. They looked dangerous because they enjoyed being close to fear. Claire lifted her chin. "I think you're standing outside a hospital threatening a nurse on camera." For the first time, the man's eyes flicked upward toward the small black security dome above the door. It was enough. A small hesitation. A crack. Behind him, one of the other men said, "Vale won't like this." The first man shot him a look. Claire caught the name and tucked it away. "Vale." The front man stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You helped the wrong stranger tonight, Claire." Her blood went cold. "I help people for a living. Not men like him." "Then maybe men like you shouldn't chase them through hospitals." The words left her before fear could stop them. His expression hardened. For one breath, Claire thought he might grab her. Then a Real security guard appeared at the end of the corridor, calling her name. The 3 men retreated without running, disappearing into the rain with the patience of people who knew they would come back. Claire stood there until the guard reached her. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded because it was easier than explaining that something had just entered her life and left teeth marks on the edges. 20 minutes later, in the staff locker room, Claire sat alone on a bench with trembling hands. The cufflink lay in her palm, black metal gleaming beneath the fluorescent light. A silver symbol was carved into the center, a circle split by a sharp vertical line. Expensive. Custom. Not something a normal man lost while running for his life. She should have thrown it away. She should have reported everything. Instead, she slipped it into the small pocket inside her bag. That was when she saw the second thing. A torn hospital bracelet caught on the sleeve of the lab coat she had thrown over him. Claire peeled it free. Most of the ink had smeared from the rain, but one line remained clear. Patient name, A. Kane. Beneath it was a number that did not look like a medical code at all. And before Claire could decide what it meant, every light in the locker room went out. The darkness did not feel like a power outage. It felt chosen. Claire sat frozen on the locker room bench, the torn hospital bracelet in one hand and the black cufflink hidden beneath her fingers. For 3 seconds, the room was nothing but breathing, rain, and the faint buzz of emergency lights trying to wake up. Then a thin red glow flickered on above the exit door. Claire stood slowly. Every nurse learned how to move in the dark without panicking. Hospitals failed in small ways all the time. Monitors froze. Elevators stalled. Lights blinked out during storms. But Claire had worked at Mercy for 5 years, and she knew the backup generator should have turned on instantly. It had not. Somewhere beyond the locker room, a door closed. Softly, too softly, Claire slipped the bracelet into her pocket beside the cufflink. Her phone screen lit up in her other hand, but there was no signal, no service. That made her stomach tighten more than the darkness did. She moved toward the door, each step careful against the tile. "Hello," she called. No answer. The hallway outside was washed in red emergency light. The white walls looked bruised. At the far end, near the security office, someone moved past the glass window and disappeared. Claire's throat went dry. She turned the other way and walked fast, not running, because running made fear louder. At the nurse's station, 2 orderlies were arguing with a maintenance worker over the outage. A patient's family member stood barefoot near the vending machine, asking why the elevators were down. Normal chaos. Hospital chaos. Claire almost convinced herself she had imagined the rest. Then her charge nurse, Linda, looked up and saw her. "Claire, administration wants you downstairs." Claire stopped. "Now." Linda's face was pale. "Now." The administrator's office was too bright when she entered, powered by a separate emergency line. Mr. Holloway sat behind his desk in a pressed blue shirt, his hands folded over a file. Beside him stood a hospital security supervisor Claire had seen twice in 5 years. Neither man smiled. "Sit down, Miss Bennett," Holloway said. She stayed standing. "Is this about the power outage?" "This is about the service corridor." Claire kept her face still. "What happened?" Holloway opened the file. Inside were printed stills from a camera feed. The empty hallway, the emergency exit, the supply cart. Then nothing. Gray static filled the next frame. At 1:41 a.m., Camera 7 went offline, he said. Camera 8 followed 11 seconds later. Camera 9 was manually disabled. Manually? That is what security is trying to determine. The supervisor watched her closely. "You were assigned to that floor." "I was leaving my shift. Did you see anyone?" The question landed gently, but Claire felt the trap under it. If she lied, she might lose her job. If she told the truth, she might lose far more. She thought of the man under the red exit sign, trying to stand. She thought of his body shifting in front of hers when the doors opened. She thought of the men in dark coats saying her name like they already owned it. "I saw shadows in the storm," she said. "That's all." Holloway's mouth tightened. "That is not helpful. Neither is questioning a nurse after a blackout without a union representative." The security supervisor blinked. Holloway leaned back, irritated. Claire's hands were trembling, so she folded them behind her back. She had broken a rule tonight. She would not break herself explaining why. 10 minutes later, they let her go with a warning and a look that told her this was not over. By dawn, the rain had stopped, but Mercy Hospital felt dirtier somehow, like the storm had washed something in instead of out. Claire walked to the staff parking lot with the cufflink and bracelet hidden deep inside her bag. She told herself she would throw them away when she got home. She told herself she would forget the name A. Kane. Then she reached her locker to grab her coat. Taped inside the metal door was a photograph. Not from the security cameras. Not from the hospital. It showed Claire standing in the rain beside the black car, her face turned toward the injured stranger as he looked back at her. Across the bottom, written in black ink, were 5 words. "We know what you did." Claire did not scream when she saw the photograph inside her locker. That surprised her more than anything. The picture was taped neatly against the metal door, its corners dry, its edges perfectly straight, as if whoever placed it there had taken their time. Claire stood in the empty locker room with her coat half in her hand, staring at herself in the rain beside the black car, staring at the injured stranger whose face was turned toward hers like she was the last thing he had chosen to remember. "We know what you did." 5 words. No name. No demand. Just a hand reaching through the dark to prove it could touch her anywhere. Claire ripped the photo down and folded it once, then again, until the stranger's face disappeared inside her fist. Her first thought was to run to security. Her second was that security had already failed. Cameras were dead. Men in dark coats knew her badge number. Someone had opened her locker without forcing it. Mercy Hospital was full of locked doors, and none of them suddenly felt locked enough. She shoved the photo into her bag beside the cufflink and the torn bracelet. Hey, Kane. The name pulsed in her mind like a warning. She did not know who he was. She only knew powerful men had chased him through a hospital storm, and worse men had stayed behind to learn her name. By the time Claire stepped outside, dawn had turned the city gray. The rain had softened to mist. Nurses changed shifts. Ambulances came and went. Life continued with the cruelty of ordinary things. Claire walked to the bus stop with her keys between her fingers and her eyes on every reflection in every window. 3 months later, Alexander Kane sat at the head of a black marble conference table 40 floors above the city and heard 7 men discuss betrayal as if it were weather. He wore a dark suit, a black shirt, and no expression. Outside the glass walls, Chicago glittered under a cold evening sky. Inside, no one moved unless Alexander allowed it. Marcus Vale is testing the South Docks, one of his men said. He thinks you're distracted. Alexander's fingers rested against the cuff of his sleeve. One cufflink was missing. It had been missing for 3 months. No one had asked about it twice. Let him think, Alexander said. His voice was quiet enough that everyone leaned in and dangerous enough that no one interrupted. The meeting continued. Numbers, routes, names, threats dressed as logistics. Alexander listened to all of it, but part of him remained in a red-lit hospital corridor with rain on his face and a nurse's arm under his shoulder. Claire Bennett. He had learned her name before sunrise. He had learned her address, her work schedule, the bus route she took home, the diner where she ordered black coffee after night shifts, and the fact that she always gave her last dollar to the old man who slept near the hospital chapel. He had also learned she never told anyone what she had done. Not her supervisor, not the police, not even when she was questioned. She had protected him without knowing his name. That kind of loyalty could not be bought. That kind of courage could get her killed. Boss, Marco said from the doorway. Alexander looked up. Marco did not speak in front of the table unless the matter was urgent. Vale's men are asking about a nurse. The room went silent. Alexander's hand stopped moving near his cuff. Marco placed a photograph on the table. Claire, leaving Mercy Hospital at dawn. Tired, beautiful, alone. Across the bottom, in black ink, were the same 5 words she had seen 3 months earlier. We know what you did. Alexander stared at the photo for a long moment. Then he stood. Every man in the room stood with him. Find her, he said. Marco nodded. Do you want protection placed at a distance? Alexander picked up his coat. His eyes had gone colder than the city beyond the glass. No, he walked toward the private elevator. I'm going myself. Claire Bennett had spent 3 months pretending the photograph in her locker had not changed the way she moved through the world. She still worked night shifts at Mercy Hospital. She still tied her hair back too loosely, drank bitter coffee from paper cups, and smiled at patients who needed kindness more than medicine. But now she checked mirrors before turning corners. Now she noticed parked cars that stayed too long. Now every time the emergency exit sign flickered red, she remembered the stranger with cold gray eyes and blood on his shirt. Hey, Kane. She had searched the name once. Only once. The results had been enough to make her close her laptop and sit in silence for 10 minutes. Alexander Kane. Businessman. Philanthropist. Owner of restaurants, hotels, shipping companies, private security firms, and half the buildings downtown that looked too expensive to have honest foundations. The articles called him private. The comments called him dangerous. One anonymous forum called him the last man in Chicago you wanted to owe a favor. Claire had laughed when she read that. Not because it was funny. Because he owed her one. And somehow that felt worse. The torn hospital bracelet and black cufflink stayed hidden in a small box beneath her bathroom sink, wrapped in gauze like medical waste. She told herself she kept them in case the police ever needed proof. That was a lie. She kept them because throwing them away felt like pretending the night had meant nothing. After her shift ended at 11:52 p.m., Claire left through the front entrance instead of the staff exit. The storm had returned, soft at first, then heavier, washing the hospital lights across the pavement in long white streaks. She pulled her jacket close and crossed the parking lot with her keys clenched between her fingers. Halfway to the bus stop, she saw the envelope. It sat under the windshield wiper of her old silver Corolla, dry despite the rain, protected inside a clear plastic sleeve. Claire stopped so abruptly that a passing orderly nearly bumped into her. Her car had not been in this lot, when the first photograph appeared. Whoever left this knew her schedule, knew her parking spot, knew she had switched exits. She looked around. The lot was half empty. Ambulance bay to her left. Visitor garage to her right. Shadows everywhere. She took the envelope with 2 fingers and opened it beneath the weak glow of a lamp post. Inside was another photograph. Not from 3 months ago. From tonight. Claire at the nurse's station, handing a blanket to an elderly man. Claire in the elevator, rubbing her tired eyes. Claire walking toward her car. At the bottom, written in the same black ink, were 6 new words. You should have forgotten his face. Claire's breath caught. Behind her, a car door closed. She turned. A man stood 20 feet away, rain sliding off his dark coat. Not one of the men from the hospital exit, but the same kind of stillness lived in him. The kind that did not belong to normal people. Miss Bennett, he said. Claire backed toward her car. I don't know you. No, but you know him. Her fingers tightened around her keys. I'm calling security. Mercy Security? He smiled. They lose cameras when they're nervous. Her phone was in her pocket. Too far. Her voice stayed steady because fear had no right to be louder than her. What do you want? Marcus Vale wants what Alexander Kane gave you. Claire stared at him. He didn't give me anything. The man's eyes dropped to her bag. Then you won't mind if I look. He took 1 step forward. Claire took 1 step back and hit the side of her car. The rain grew louder. The hospital doors were too far away. The bus stop was empty. For one terrible second, she understood how alone a person could be in a public place. Then headlights swept across the lot. A black car rolled in without sound, stopping between Claire and the man in the coat. The rear door opened. Alexander Kane stepped out into the rain wearing a dark suit and the kind of calm that made danger look organized. His eyes found the man first, then Claire. Only then did he speak. You came too close. The man in the dark coat stopped the moment Alexander Kane stepped out of the black car. That was the first thing Claire noticed. Not Alexander's suit darkening under the rain. Not the 2 silent men who exited from the front seats and moved without needing orders. Not the way the parking lot seemed to shrink around him. She noticed that the stranger who had been smiling at her seconds ago suddenly forgot how to smile. Alexander did not raise his voice. He did not rush. He simply stood between Claire and the man from Vale, rain sliding down the sharp lines of his face, his gray eyes colder than the hospital lights behind them. You came too close, he said again. The man swallowed. Mr. Kane. Claire's heart hit hard against her ribs. Mr. Kane. Not a Kane on a torn hospital bracelet. Not the half-conscious stranger beneath the emergency exit sign. Not the man whose cufflink she had kept wrapped in gauze under her sink for 3 months. Alexander Kane. Standing in front of her now, like the storm had brought him back exactly where it started. She isn't part of this, the man said carefully. Alexander's eyes did not move. Then why were you reaching for her bag? The man's mouth tightened. Vale only wants what belongs to him. One of Alexander's men shifted near the hood of the car. The movement was small, but the warning inside it was not. Claire gripped the envelope in her hand, suddenly aware that she was still pressed against her old Corolla, soaked through, exhausted, and furious in a way fear had not managed to erase. I don't have anything that belongs to Vale, she said. Alexander turned his head just enough to look at her. Not fully, not long, but enough for Claire to see recognition flash in his eyes, controlled and immediate. He knew her, not vaguely, not as a face from one terrible night. He knew her the way dangerous men knew exits, threats, and debts that could not be left unpaid. Get in the car, Alexander said. Claire stared at him. Excuse me. His jaw tightened, as if he had expected obedience and disliked discovering she had none to offer. Claire, her name in his voice, did something to the air between them. The man from Vale noticed. So did Alexander's men. So did Claire, and she hated that her pulse reacted before her pride did. You know my name, she said. Yes. You knew I was being followed. Yes. The answer was too calm, too honest. It landed like another betrayal. Claire stepped away from her car, rain dripping from her lashes. And you waited 3 months to appear in a parking lot and give me orders? Alexander's expression did not soften, but something behind his eyes shifted. I waited because distance was safer. She gave a short, disbelieving laugh. For who? He did not answer fast enough. That was answer enough. Behind him, the man from Vale began edging backward toward the shadows. Alexander did not even look at him. Tell Marcus Vale, he said, voice low, that if he uses her name again, I will stop being patient. The man's face paled. He turned and disappeared into the rain, not running, but moving fast enough to prove fear had found him. The parking lot went quiet except for water striking pavement. Claire should have felt safer. She did not. Safety should not arrive looking like control. Alexander faced her fully now. Up close. He was even more intimidating than memory had made him. Tall, broad-shouldered, composed, the kind of man who seemed built to survive disasters and become one for other people. You saved my life, he said. Claire's throat tightened. I opened a door. You chose me when you didn't know what choosing me would cost. And what did it cost? Alexander looked toward the hospital, then back at her. Your anonymity. The word chilled her more than the rain. Claire's hand moved instinctively to her bag, where the latest photograph was folded beside her phone. Alexander saw the movement. His gaze sharpened. What did they leave you? She hesitated. Then she handed him the envelope. He looked at the photos without expression, but the silence around him changed. It became heavier, more dangerous. This started again tonight, he asked. It never stopped, Claire said. For the first time, Alexander Kane looked almost angry with himself. Not enough for anyone else to notice. Just enough for her. He handed the photos to one of his men. Marco, find out who touched her car. Then he looked back at Claire. You can hate me after you're safe. I'm not going anywhere with you. You are not staying here. You don't get to decide that. Alexander stepped closer, stopping before the distance became a threat. His voice dropped. No, but Vale decided you matter. And once men like him decide that, your choices become fewer unless someone makes space for them. Claire hated how much sense that made. Hated the rain. Hated the cufflink under her sink. Hated that 3 months ago, the man in front of her had looked at her like he was memorizing her face, and she had not understood that being remembered by Alexander Kane might be the most dangerous thing that ever happened to her. Then her phone vibrated. Unknown number. One message. The cufflink is not the only thing he left with you. Alexander read it over her shoulder, and his face went completely still. Claire, he said quietly, where is the hospital bracelet? Claire did not answer fast enough. Alexander saw it before she could build the lie. His eyes moved once across her face, reading the hesitation, the fear, the stubborn lift of her chin, and something like dread tightened the space between them. Where is it? He asked again. Claire stepped back from him, rain sliding down her cheeks. Why? Because Vale wants it. That is not an answer. Alexander's jaw hardened. Behind him, Marco stood beside the black car with the envelope of photographs in his hand, watching the parking lot like it might breathe wrong. Claire ignored him. Her eyes stayed on Alexander. You knew my name. You knew where I worked. You knew I was being followed. Now you know about the bracelet. So tell me, Mr. Kane, how long have you been keeping pieces of my life in your pocket? The word struck something. Not visibly. Alexander Kane was too controlled for that. But his silence changed. It lost its sharpness and became heavier, almost honest. Since the night you opened that door. Claire laughed once, but there was no humor in it. That is supposed to make me feel better? No good. Because it doesn't. He looked toward the hospital entrance, where distant security lights reflected over wet pavement. Vale's men searched the hospital after I left. They took camera records, bribed staff, questioned people who should never have been touched. I put distance between us because if I came back, I confirmed you mattered. And staying away made me safe? For 3 months, yes. No, Claire's voice sharpened. For 3 months, I looked over my shoulder. For 3 months, I wondered whether every car behind me was going to follow me home. For 3 months, I kept something I didn't understand under my bathroom sink because I was afraid throwing it away would make it worse. Alexander went very still. Your apartment. Claire stopped breathing for half a second. He had not asked where the bracelet was. He had heard what she accidentally revealed. She hated him for that. She hated how dangerous his attention was when it turned fully toward her. Claire, he said quietly, get in the car. No, if Vale knows the bracelet exists, he knows it is not at the hospital anymore. If he knows your address, you know my address. I had it watched. The confession landed between them like broken glass. Claire stared at him. You had me watched. Protected. Don't dress it up. His eyes darkened. I had 2 men outside your building every night after 11. One across from the diner after your shift. One near the bus stop when you refused to take a cab home during storms. You never saw them because they were good at their jobs. Her anger faltered, not because it disappeared, but because something colder moved beneath it. The night she thought a man had followed her into the subway, then vanished. The evening her landlord suddenly stopped pounding on her door. The black SUV she had noticed once outside the diner, gone before she could look twice. You had no right, she whispered. I know. That answer was worse than any excuse. Claire looked at him through the rain, at the man she had saved without knowing he could turn her whole life into something guarded from shadows. Why didn't you just tell me? Because you would have looked at me exactly like this. Like what? Like I am the danger. Claire held his gaze. Aren't you? For the first time, Alexander did not answer immediately. Then he stepped closer, stopping just outside the edge of her personal space. Close enough that she could see rain caught in his eyelashes. Far enough that the choice to stay belonged to her. Yes, he said, but not to you. The words were quiet. They should not have affected her. They did. Claire looked away first. That felt like losing something. The bracelet is in my apartment, she said. Under the bathroom sink. In a small white box. Alexander turned to Marco. Send a team. No, Claire said. Both men looked at her. She wiped rain from her face and lifted her chin. If someone is going into my apartment, it's me. Alexander's expression tightened. Absolutely not. You said I chose you when I didn't know the cost. Now I know the cost. I still get to choose what happens next. For a long moment, the rain filled the silence. Then Alexander opened the rear door of the car. Then you stay beside me. Claire wanted to refuse just because he had said it like an order. Instead, she stepped past him and got in. The drive to her apartment took 12 minutes. No one spoke. When they reached her building, the front door was already unlocked. Claire's stomach sank. Her apartment door stood open at the end of the third-floor hallway. Inside, every drawer had been pulled out. Her mattress was sliced. Her bathroom cabinet hung open. The white box beneath the sink was empty. On the mirror, written in black marker, were 6 words. Thank you for keeping it safe. Claire stared at the words on her bathroom mirror until they stopped looking like handwriting and started looking like a hand around her throat. Thank you for keeping it safe. The black marker had been dragged slowly across the glass, each letter calm, deliberate, almost polite. Whoever had done this had not rushed. They had walked through her apartment, touched her things, opened her drawers, stood in her bathroom, and taken the white box from beneath her sink like they had every right to it. Alexander stood behind her, silent. That silence frightened her more than shouting would have. Men like him did not become quieter because they were calm. They became quieter because something inside them had chosen a target. Don't touch anything, Marco said from the doorway. Claire turned on him. It's my apartment. Not anymore, Alexander said. Her eyes snapped to him. Excuse me. He looked at the torn mattress, the cabinet hanging open, the family photo cracked beneath someone's shoe. Tonight, this is a crime scene. And tomorrow? His gaze returned to her. Tomorrow depends on whether Vale understands what he just stole. Claire laughed once, sharp and breathless. You mean the bracelet you left with me? I did not leave it with you. No. You just bled on hospital tile, ran through my exit, dropped your cufflink, and vanished into a black car while men came asking for me by name. Alexander absorbed the hit without flinching. That made her angrier. You don't get to act like this happened to me by accident, she said. It happened because of you. Yes. The answer landed hard because it was not defensive. It was worse. It was true. Claire looked away first, hating the sting in her eyes. She had spent 3 months afraid of shadows, and now the man who cast them was standing in her destroyed bathroom, looking like he would burn the city down before apologizing properly. Alexander stepped closer, stopping beside the sink. What did you see on the bracelet? Claire folded her arms. A fake patient name. A. Kane. A number underneath. Do you remember the number? She hesitated. His eyes sharpened. Claire, I'm a nurse, she said. I remember numbers for a living. Something changed in his expression. Not relief. Men like Alexander did not allow relief to show that easily. But the pressure in the room shifted. Say it. She recited the digits quietly. Marco, standing in the doorway, looked up before she finished. Alexander's jaw tightened. That is not a hospital ID. I know. Claire reached for the cabinet, then stopped when Marco gave her a warning look. She ignored him and pulled open what was left of the drawer beneath the sink. From behind a stack of towels, she took out her old phone. Its screen was cracked, the case peeling at the edge. That's why I photographed it. Alexander stared at the phone in her hand. You copied it. I didn't trust my memory. You didn't trust me. I didn't know you. His gaze held hers. And now, Claire's throat tightened. Now I know enough to be careful. For a second, neither of them moved. Rain tapped against the small apartment window. Somewhere below, a car alarm chirped and went silent. Alexander took the phone only after she handed it to him. His thumb moved over the cracked screen, opening the image. The hospital bracelet glowed pale beneath her bathroom light, the smeared ink still visible. Hey, Kane. Beneath it, the strange number. Marco stepped beside him. Boss. I see it. Claire looked between them. What is it? Alexander's voice dropped. The night you found me, I had just taken something from Marcus Vale. What? Evidence. Claire's pulse slowed in the awful way it did before a patient crashed. Against him? Against him, 3 city officials, 2 hospital board members, and a private security company that moves people through Mercy under false names. Claire felt the room tilt. Mercy. Alexander looked at her, and for the first time she understood why he had not wanted to come back into her life. The danger was not near the hospital. It was inside it. The bracelet was a map, he said. Not to a place. To a patient record. Claire shook her head. Patient records are encrypted. This one was hidden inside the system. Why would Vale want the physical bracelet if the number is enough? Alexander's eyes went cold. Because the bracelet carries the access stamp. Without it, the number only tells you where to look. With it, you can open the file. Claire looked at the empty white box on the bathroom floor. Then he has everything. No, Alexander said. His gaze moved back to the photo on her cracked phone. He has the key, but he still needs someone who understands Mercy's system well enough to use it. Claire went still. Her phone vibrated in Alexander's hand. Unknown number. A new message appeared across the shattered screen. Bring the nurse back to the hospital. Claire looked at the message on the cracked phone, and for one quiet second, her destroyed apartment disappeared. Bring the nurse back to the hospital. Not Claire. Not Miss Bennett. The nurse. Like she was a tool. Like she was a password Marcus Vale needed someone to carry. Alexander closed his hand around the phone so tightly the fractured glass creaked. No, Claire looked at him. That wasn't your message to answer. It was a trap. Obviously. Then you're not walking into it. I work there. Not tonight. Claire stepped over the broken frame of her bathroom mirror and faced him in the narrow hall of her ruined apartment. You do not get to turn my life into a battlefield and then tell me where I'm allowed to stand. Marco shifted in the doorway, but Alexander lifted one hand without looking at him. Stay back. His eyes remained on Claire. Cold. Controlled. Far too intense. If Vale wants you inside Mercy, it means he cannot open the record without you. Then we know what he needs. And that makes you valuable to him. It also makes me useful to you. Something dangerous moved through his expression. Do not confuse those two things. Claire's anger faltered. Not because he had softened. He had not. Alexander Kane still looked like a man carved from expensive suits, discipline, and violence held behind locked doors. But there was something beneath the command now, something raw enough to make his voice quieter. He did not want to need her. That scared him more than the trap. I'm going, she said. Then you go beside me. The drive back to Mercy Hospital felt shorter than it should have and longer than Claire could bear. Rain streaked sideways against the windows of Alexander's car. The city blurred into silver and black beyond the glass. No one spoke. Alexander sat beside her, still as a shadow, one hand resting near his knee, the other curled around the phone with Vale's message on it. Claire watched his reflection in the window and remembered him 3 months ago beneath the red exit sign, wounded but still stepping in front of her when danger came through the doors. She hated him for bringing this to her. She hated herself more for remembering that part. Mercy looked different when they returned. The bright emergency entrance, the humming lights, the automatic doors opening and closing for tired families and pale patients. It all looked normal. That was the worst part. Evil did not always arrive with darkness. Sometimes it wore a visitor badge and knew which hallway cameras failed first. Claire entered through the staff entrance with Alexander one pace behind her. Not touching, not crowding, but near enough that every security guard who glanced her way suddenly looked elsewhere. She changed into the spare scrub jacket in her locker with shaking hands while Alexander waited outside the door. When she stepped out, he looked at the names stitched over her chest. Claire Bennett, RN. His eyes lingered there for half a second, This is your world, he said quietly. Claire swallowed. Then listen when I tell you how it works. She led him to the old records office behind radiology, a place most administrators forgot existed because the new system had made everyone arrogant. The lights buzzed overhead. Filing cabinets lined the walls. A single computer sat on a metal desk beside a printer that only worked when threatened. Claire logged in with her own credentials, then stopped before entering the bracelet number. If I open this, there's an audit trail. Vale already knows you're here. So will the hospital. Alexander looked at her. I can make that disappear. Don't. His brows barely moved. Claire. No. I am not letting you erase me to protect me. He went silent. She typed the number. The screen loaded slowly. Too slowly. Then one hidden record appeared beneath a false patient file. Not Alexander Kane. Not A. Kane. K exit protocol. Claire clicked it, and the room seemed to lose air. Names filled the screen. Hospital board members. Private security transfers. Sealed room numbers. False discharge orders. People moved through mercy under fake identities, then erased from the system like they had never existed. At the bottom of the file was a video still from the night Claire opened the exit. Alexander bleeding beneath the red sign. Claire holding the door. And beside it, a new label. Witness Asset, Claire Bennett. Asset, she whispered. Alexander's face turned terrifyingly still. Print it. The printer coughed to life. Page after page slid out, evidence in black ink. Proof pulled from the place that had tried to hide it. Then the office phone rang. Claire and Alexander looked at it. Once. Twice. On the third ring, Alexander answered without speaking. Marcus Vale's voice came through soft and amused. Thank you for bringing her back, Kane. Claire's blood went cold. Vale continued. Now look at the security monitor. Claire turned toward the small screen above the desk. The hospital chapel appeared in grainy black and white. A woman sat alone in the front pew, hands folded tightly in her lap. Claire's mother. Alexander stepped closer, his voice dropping into something lethal. Vale. Claire could barely breathe. On the monitor, her mother lifted her head as a man in a dark coat sat beside her. Vale laughed softly through the phone. You saved his life once, Claire. Let's see who you saved tonight. Claire did not remember moving toward the door. One moment she was standing in the records office, staring at her mother on the security monitor. The next, Alexander's hand was around her wrist, not tight enough to hurt, only firm enough to stop panic from choosing for her. Don't run blind, he said. Claire turned on him, eyes bright with fear. That is my mother. I know. Then let go. His gaze flicked to the monitor. The man in the dark coat sat beside Mary Bennett like he belonged there, hands folded, head slightly bowed beneath the chapel's soft lights. Anyone passing by would think he was praying. Claire knew better. Predators learned how to look harmless in public places. Alexander released her wrist. The choice mattered. Even now. Even with danger watching from a screen. You know this hospital, he said quietly. Tell me how to get there without giving Vale what he wants. Claire swallowed hard. The question steadied her more than comfort would have. He was not pushing her behind him. He was asking her to lead. Main hall is too visible, she said, forcing her nurse's brain to work through the terror. There's a staff corridor behind imaging. It connects to the chapel storage room. Alexander looked at Marco. 2 men at the front entrance. 2 at the east stairwell. No uniforms. No scene. Then he turned back to Claire. You stay beside me. No, she said. His jaw tightened. Claire. If I walk in beside you, he knows we're scared. If I walk in as her daughter, he has to keep pretending. Alexander stared at her for one long second. His eyes were cold, but something inside them moved with reluctant respect. 30 seconds, he said. If he touches her, I move. If he touches her, Claire whispered, I won't stop you. They reached the chapel through the storage room, passing shelves of folded blankets, old hymnals, and electric candles no one had time to dust. Claire could hear her own breathing before she pushed the door open. The chapel was small, quiet, washed in blue light from stained glass that showed no saints clearly in the dark. Her mother sat in the front pew, fragile in her beige cardigan, her hands clasped too tightly in her lap. The man beside her looked up and smiled. Claire, Mary said, relief breaking through confusion. A man told me you needed me here. Claire walked forward slowly. I know, Mom. The stranger's smile widened. You're very brave for a nurse. Claire stopped at the end of the pew. And you're very comfortable threatening women in chapels. His eyes flicked past her, searching the shadows. Alexander remained hidden near the side aisle, silent as judgment. Marcus Vale sends his appreciation, the man said. The file is open now. All we need is your access confirmation. I already printed the file. The printed file is theater. The live record is power. He lifted a small black device from his coat pocket. Your badge. Your fingerprint. 30 seconds. Then your mother walks out untouched. Mary's face went white. Claire. Claire looked at the device, then at the man, then at the security camera tucked above the chapel door. An idea cut through her fear, sharp and clean. Mercy's chapel camera did not record audio, but it did track badge movement near restricted doors. The system would log whoever opened the records archive from here. She reached slowly for her badge. Alexander stepped from the shadows before she could lift it. The chapel air changed instantly. The man's smile disappeared. Mary gasped softly. Alexander did not look at Claire's mother. He looked only at Vale's messenger. You used her mother, he said. The man stood too fast. Kane, that was your last mistake. Claire moved before the room could break. She grabbed her mother's hand and pulled her into the aisle. Marco appeared at the chapel entrance, blocking it without noise. The messenger raised both hands, suddenly pale, suddenly human. But then every light in the chapel switched red. A hospital alarm began to pulse overhead. Lockdown initiated. Claire froze. Alexander's eyes snapped to the camera. A mechanical voice echoed through the hall beyond the chapel. Unauthorized access confirmed. Records archive sealed. Claire looked down at her badge. It was still in her hand. She had never used it. Then Alexander's phone buzzed. A message from Vale filled the screen. Thank you, Claire. Your credentials worked perfectly. For 1 second, Claire thought Alexander would look at her the way everyone else would. Like the alarm was proof. Like the message on his phone had turned her from victim into suspect. Thank you, Claire. Your credentials worked perfectly. Her badge was still in her hand. Her fingerprint had touched nothing. Her mother was trembling beside her in the chapel aisle, confused and terrified, while red emergency lights washed the pews in a color that made the whole room feel guilty. Claire forced the words out. I didn't do it. Alexander looked at her immediately. I know. No hesitation. No doubt. Just 2 words, calm and absolute, cutting through the alarm like a blade through silk. Claire stared at him because she had expected suspicion. She had expected anger. She had not expected belief to hit harder than either. The man from Vale tried to move while everyone was distracted. Marco stopped him at the chapel doors with one hand against his chest. Not violent. Not loud. Just final. Alexander stepped toward the messenger, his voice low enough that only the people closest could hear. How did Vale get her credentials? The man's mouth twisted. You should pay better attention to what your enemies leave behind. Claire looked down at the black device still lying on the pew. The one he had asked her to use. The one she had never touched. Her stomach dropped. It scanned my badge when I walked in. Alexander's eyes went cold. Proximity reader. My access opened the file remotely, Claire whispered. Not from here, she said, her nurse's mind catching up faster than fear could bury it. Mercy's system logs location. If it used my badge, it would show the terminal. Alexander turned to her. Where? Claire looked toward the chapel ceiling, listening beneath the alarm, beneath the automated lockdown message repeating through the hall. Old records office. But if he already accessed the file, why trigger lockdown? The answer came from the doorway. Because someone needed time to leave. Mr. Holloway stood in the chapel entrance with 2 hospital security guards behind him, his face pale and furious. His eyes went from Claire to her mother, then to Alexander Kane. Fear flashed across his expression before he buried it under authority. Miss Bennett, he said, you need to come with us. Claire straightened. My mother is leaving first. No one is leaving during lockdown. Alexander moved 1 step beside Claire, not in front of her. The difference mattered. Her mother leaves with my people. Holloway swallowed. This is a hospital matter. Alexander's stare made the chapel colder. Not anymore. Claire turned to Marco. Please take her through imaging. There's a service elevator that bypasses the main hall. Mary gripped her hand. Claire, what is happening? Claire squeezed back, fighting the break in her voice. I'm fixing it. Alexander's gaze shifted to her at that. Something unreadable moved behind his eyes. Something close to respect, and something dangerously close to fear. Not fear of Vale. Fear for her. Marco led Mary away through the storage room, while Holloway protested weakly and did nothing to stop him. That told Claire more than any confession could have. He was afraid of Alexander, but he was also afraid of Vale. She faced Holloway. Who accessed the archive? Your badge did. From what terminal? He looked away. Claire's breath caught. You know. Alexander's voice dropped. Answer her. Holloway's composure cracked. Room 614. Claire went still. That room has been closed for renovations for 2 years. Not tonight, Holloway said. Alexander was already moving. Claire followed before anyone could tell her not to. They cut through the staff corridor, red lights pulsing over tile. The hospital around them trapped between ordinary panic and something much darker. At the elevator, Claire's phone vibrated again. A video filled the screen. Room 614. The old patient bed. The stolen bracelet lying beside a laptop. And on the wall behind it, a live countdown. 10 minutes. Beneath the video, Vale had written one sentence. Come alone, nurse, or the file goes to the police with your name on it. Claire stared at the message until the words blurred against the rain still drying on her sleeves. Come alone, nurse, or the file goes to the police with your name on it. Alexander took one step closer, and the hallway seemed to narrow around him. No, Claire did not look at him. You keep saying that like it changes anything. It changes whether you walk into a room built to destroy you. It already has my name on it. His voice dropped. Claire. She turned then, and whatever he saw in her face made him stop. Not because she frightened him. Because he understood, finally, that fear was no longer the thing leading her. He doesn't want me alone because I'm helpless, she said. He wants me alone because he knows I understand the hospital better than he does. Alexander's eyes sharpened. Tell me. Claire looked at the video again. Room 614. The bed. The laptop. The stolen bracelet beside it. The countdown. 9 minutes and 12 seconds. That room has no active patient network, she said. It's been closed for renovations. If a laptop is pulling a live archive file from there, someone routed it through a staff terminal nearby. Holloway. Or someone using his access. Alexander turned to Marco. Find the nearest hardline terminal to 614. Marco disappeared down the red-lit corridor without another word. Claire started walking before Alexander could stop her. He fell into step beside her, close enough to shield, far enough not to cage. The difference still mattered, even now. The 6th floor felt abandoned under lockdown. Red lights pulsed over empty chairs, closed doors, polished tile. Somewhere below, frightened voices echoed through the stairwell. Mercy Hospital had saved people for decades, but tonight it felt like a body holding its breath. Outside room 614, Claire stopped. Her hand hovered over the door handle. Alexander's gaze stayed on her face. I go first. No, his jaw tightened. You are not a shield. Neither are you. The words landed between them, quiet and impossible. Alexander looked at her as if she had stepped too close to a truth he kept locked behind his ribs. Then he nodded once. Claire opened the door. Room 614 smelled like dust, old paint, and cold electricity. The hospital bed sat in the center of the room, stripped to a bare mattress. The stolen bracelet lay on the pillow beside a laptop, showing the same countdown. 8 minutes. 40 seconds. On the screen, a transfer bar crawled forward beneath a folder labeled Bennett. Claire, unauthorized archive access. Claire's stomach clenched, but she forced herself closer. It's fake, she whispered. Alexander moved behind her. How do you know? Because it's too clean. Her fingers hovered above the trackpad. Real hospital records are messy. Notes, revisions, timestamps, initials. This is a story someone wrote for police. The laptop camera light blinked on. Marcus Vale's face appeared on the screen, calm and amused, framed by darkness. Clever girl. Alexander went still. Vale. Kane. Still hiding behind nurses. Claire stepped closer before Alexander could answer. You used my badge remotely. Vale smiled. Your credentials opened a criminal file. Your access pulled protected records. Your fingerprints will be on the bracelet. The police love simple stories. Claire looked at the transfer bar. 7 minutes. Then why invite me here? Because I wanted you to watch the moment your kindness became evidence. Her chest tightened, but her mind stayed clear. She saw the number in the corner of the screen. The terminal routing code. Not 614. 612B. The old medication room. Marco's voice came through Alexander's phone a second later. Boss. Found Holloway. Medication room. He's logged in. Vale's smile faded. Claire did not waste the opening. She pulled her cracked phone from her pocket and connected it to the laptop with the charger cable hanging from the desk. Alexander looked at her. What are you doing? Proving time. She opened the photo she had taken 3 months ago. The bracelet, wet and torn, under her bathroom light. My phone stored the original image before tonight. Date, location, metadata. Before Holloway copied my credentials. Before Vale stole the bracelet. Before they built this file. Vale's voice sharpened. Do not touch that laptop. Claire ignored him. She uploaded the image into the hospital incident log and attached the printed archive pages from the records office. Her hands shook, but she did not stop. Hospitals remember everything, she said. Even what men like you try to erase. The transfer bar froze. Then the screen flashed. Legal hold initiated. External transfer suspended. Vale's face disappeared. For 1 second, the room was silent. Then Alexander's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered without speaking. Vale's voice came through colder now, stripped of charm. You think that saves her? Claire looked at Alexander. His eyes were on her, not the phone. Vale continued. The police are already on the way. And this time, the nurse leaves in handcuffs unless Kane gives himself up. Sirens rose outside the hospital windows, faint at first, then closer. The sirens grew louder outside Mercy Hospital, rising through the sealed windows like the city itself had come to judge her. Claire stood in room 614 with the laptop glowing blue against her face, the stolen bracelet lying on the bare pillow, and Alexander Kane beside her looking like a man preparing to trade his life for hers without asking permission. She saw it before he spoke. The decision in his shoulders. The silence in his jaw. The way his eyes moved once to the door, then back to her, already calculating how to make himself the bigger target. No, Claire said. Alexander looked at her. You don't know what I'm about to say. Yes, I do. Her voice shook, but it did not break. You're going to walk out there and give them yourself because Vale said that saves me. Alexander's expression did not change. That was answer enough. It buys time. It gives him exactly what he wants. It keeps handcuffs off you. Claire stepped closer, close enough now that the red emergency light washed over both of them. I am done letting powerful men decide which cage is safest for me. Something flickered in his eyes. Not anger. Not this time. Pain, maybe. Respect, certainly. Outside the room, boots hit the hallway. Police voices. Security voices. Holloway shouting somewhere near the elevators, thin and panicked. Marco appeared in the doorway, calm but tense. They're here. Alexander moved first. Claire caught his sleeve. He stopped instantly. That small obedience nearly undid her. Don't make them afraid of you, she whispered. Make them listen to me. The hallway filled with officers, hospital security, and administrators wearing expressions too frightened to be innocent. Mr. Holloway stood between 2 guards, sweating through his collar. A detective with tired eyes raised one hand when he saw Alexander. Nobody move. Claire stepped forward before Alexander could. My name is Claire Bennett. I'm the nurse Marcus Vale tried to frame. Holloway barked. She accessed restricted files illegally. Claire lifted her cracked phone. My original photo of the bracelet was taken 3 months ago. Before tonight. Before the stolen badge scan. Before the fake record was created. She turned the laptop so the detective could see the screen. The live transfer was routed through medication room 612B, not this room. Holloway's terminal. Holloway's login. Holloway's face collapsed. She doesn't understand what she opened. I understand enough, Claire said. Her voice grew steadier with every word. I understand people were moved through this hospital under false names. I understand records were erased. I understand my badge was cloned when Vale's man cornered my mother in the chapel. And I understand you knew room 614 was never under renovation. The detective looked at Holloway. Is that true? Holloway said nothing. Then Alexander's phone rang. Unknown number. Everyone heard it. Claire looked at Alexander, then reached out. After one breath, he gave her the phone. She answered and put it on speaker. Marcus Vale's voice slid into the room, smooth and amused. Kane, I expected better. Did you really think the nurse could save you twice? No one moved. Vale continued, unaware of the audience. Give yourself up before the police drag her out, or I make sure Claire Bennett's name is buried under every file your hands ever touched. The detective's eyes sharpened. Holloway closed his eyes. Claire held the phone tighter. You were wrong about one thing, she said. Silence. Then Vale's voice changed. Claire, I didn't save him twice. Her eyes found Alexander's. I saved myself tonight. For the first time since she had met him, Alexander Kane looked at her like power was not something he owned, but something he recognized in someone else. The lockdown alarm cut off. The sudden quiet felt almost violent. Officers moved around them. Holloway was taken from the hallway without drama, without shouting, just the dull collapse of a man who had trusted the wrong monster to protect him. Vale had already hung up. Of course he had. Men like him survived by leaving before the truth arrived. An hour later, Claire stood near the same hospital exit where it had all begun. Dawn pressed pale light against the rain-streaked glass. Her mother was safe downstairs with Marco. The evidence was copied, logged, and no longer hidden in one fragile place. Alexander stood beside Claire, close but not touching. You should go home, she said softly. You don't have one tonight. She looked at him. You're not taking over my life. No, his voice was quiet. I'm standing in the part of it Vale tried to reach. Claire stared at the door she had opened 3 months ago. I helped a stranger escape through this exit. Alexander's gaze stayed on her face. I was never a stranger after that. Her breath caught. Before she could answer, her phone vibrated. Unknown number. One final message lit the screen. Tell Kane I never forget a face either. Outside, across the wet parking lot, a black sedan turned on its headlights.